Most useless megaprojects in the world. Did you know that a capital city was constructed to house millions of people, but it is now essentially deserted, and that the US wasted $17 billion on a megaproject that has remained virtually useless throughout the years? We will examine 5 of the world's most pointless megaprojects today. Interstate H3 Hawaii. Let's start with a roadway in Hawaii's Aloha State that is 26 kilometers long and runs through one of the most beautiful landscapes on Earth. It is astounding that there were real worries about drivers stopping and causing traffic problems. The highway, though, is just as contentious as it is stunning, as the roadway would link the Marine Corps Air Station on the east coast to the naval facility at Pearl Harbor on the south side. It was first suggested in 1960 with defensive considerations in mind. Native Hawaiians and environmentalists who were concerned about the project's huge urbanization expressed opposition to it as soon as it was announced that it would be built. Plans were perpetually postponed due to environmental regulations in effect at the time and a modification en route to protect the adjacent valleys. The project was exempted from environmental rules by Congress 26 years later, removing the barriers to construction, which could then start in 1989. In 1997, some 37 years after it was first suggested, the highway was eventually completed. Because of the challenging terrain it was built on and the cutting-edge technologies that were employed in its construction, Interstate 3 is sometimes regarded as an engineering marvel. To safeguard the local ecosystem in the valleys below, the highway goes almost entirely over through ducts in addition to the several high-tech tunnels. Decades of decay route changes and newer but more expensive technologies meant that it was completed 5 times over the original estimated budget. Construction overall cost $1.3 billion, or $50 million per kilometer, making it the most expensive per kilometer in the world. Despite having a huge budget, not everyone can benefit from this lovely highway. Because the 1960s defense reasons are no longer applicable and there is no direct route from the highway to downtown Honolulu, critics claim that it is a road leading nowhere. Then there is the issue of Native Hawaiians, the majority of whom still refuse to use the H3, believing it to be cursed due to the destruction of numerous culturally and religiously significant sites during construction. In terms of big projects, the Interstate H3 highway is unquestionably a success. For some native groups, it is still ineffective, though. Even though it is one of the world's most pointless megaprojects, at least it hasn't been abandoned entirely like the project after this one. Ciudad Real International Airport, Spain. One of the most popular travel destinations in Europe is Spain, and when the idea for the Ciudad Real Central Airport was conceived, that was a crucial factor. It was predicted that it will become the preferred vacation spot for both domestic and foreign tourists. The goal of this new airport was to provide a viable alternative to Madrid's already incredibly packed main airport. The new airport can accommodate 2 million people annually and has one of the top 5 longest runways in all of Europe. Considering Madrid can accommodate 70 million passengers, that is a low figure. However, there were already plans in place to increase the capacity to 10 million per year. In 2009, when it eventually started operating, the $1.3 billion cost could have appeared reasonable. All of these strategies, however, were put on hold in 2012 when the project's sponsor filed for bankruptcy. The project's location was where the issues first surfaced. Despite being termed the Central Airport, it wasn't in any way central because it was 200 kilometers outside of Madrid. This made matters worse because most travelers disliked making the long trip to the distant site, and the majority of major airlines chose to operate their flights from the nation's capital. So the newly constructed airport had only one small-time airline operating at the end of the first year of operation, without any big airlines to draw travelers. By 2012, the airport owed $350 million in debt. Naturally, it entered receivership and was offered for sale in 2013. Even the idea of the airport as a deserted place gained popularity by the popular British television program Top Gear in 2014. The airport was finally sold to new owners in 2019 after several auctions, including one with an exorbitant $12,000 offer, fell through. This billion-dollar mega-project remains effectively useless for passengers, is why we included it on the list of most useless mega-projects in the world. Naypyidaw, Myanmar. Not just a distant airport ranks 3rd on the list of the world's most pointless undertakings. It is Myanmar's capital, a brand new capital that was created from nothing. In 2002, a new capital was being constructed covertly by the previous military government of Myanmar. The relocation of a nation's capital is not unheard of. Other nations, including Pakistan, Egypt, and Brazil, have done it in the past. The most picturesque vistas may be found in Islamabad, the city's capital. Click to view Islamabad's top tourist destinations. The leader of Myanmar made his decision public in November 2005. However, he did not reveal the name of the new capital. He finally unveiled the name Naypyidaw, which means literally, the residence of the kings, 4 months later. This abrupt transfer of capital had no apparent cause. Some believed that the military command changed because of astrological counsel, while others said it was due to a fear of an attack from the sea. The former capital of Myanmar, Yangon, which is home to 7 million people and is expected to quadruple in size by 2050, is thought to have reached its infrastructure limits. In addition, the seaside city was made the nation's capital during British administration in order to support the British Navy. Therefore, moving the capital to a more central location made sense for Myanmar. The new project was completed quickly, and up to this point, the city has received $4 billion from various governments. Forest City, Malaysia. After discussing a seemingly abandoned city, we will discuss a green, smart metropolis that would be developed around an artificial forest environment and rise from reclaimed ground on 4 artificial islands. For investors looking to profit from its proximity to the autonomous city-state of Singapore, Forest City's position makes it a desirable wager. Singapore boasts the second busiest port in the world and a booming economy. The second link bridge, built by the developers, already connects Forest City to Singapore, cutting the travel time between the two cities to just 20 minutes. Additionally, Forest City will have a customs facility of its own, allowing citizens to easily travel to Singapore and return. The design is said to include numerous eco-friendly improvements. Buildings in Forest City will have green rooftops and vertical gardens to simulate a rainforest. With a multi-layered architecture, city streets will have a lower layer for parking and traffic, while parks, sports venues, and transportation hubs will be found in the higher stratum. The metropolis, which would cost $100 billion when finished in 2035, will run entirely on renewable energy. An island with 50 apartment structures, golf courses, swimming pools, and beaches is one of the 4 that have been proposed. However, this extremely ambitious undertaking is not without its challenges. Already, a plethora of political and economic barriers are impeding its development. Chinese citizens essentially enjoyed a free pass to the city during the first few years of building because the project is primarily sponsored by China. Rich Chinese investors who couldn't afford the skyrocketing rents in their own nation rushed to Forest City as a result. 80% of the property owners were Chinese as of 2019. The few new schools that have opened in the neighborhood are now offering Mandarin classes, and even the street signs are in Mandarin. Due to the fact that property prices are primarily considered for the Chinese marketplace, native Malaysians simply cannot afford to purchase these apartments. An uproar was generated by the flood of Chinese investors, which opponents of the project saw as a new type of colonialism. As a result, foreigners were prohibited from holding property in the Forest City after a change in leadership was implemented by Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad. Yucca Mountain, Nevada. A depository for nuclear waste can be built. The huge project that was planned in light of a delicate global issue will round up this list. Nuclear waste is not as frequently discussed as other environmental issues. It can be more deadly than anything ever seen since the dawn of humanity, though, if not stored properly. Nuclear waste is currently kept above ground close to the power facilities it originates from. The scientific community does concur that burying this hazardous material far underground is the safest long-term disposal option. The US government began looking for a long-term solution to this expanding garbage problem in the 1980s. In 1987, the best option was determined to be Yucca Mountain in Nevada. It was far from any population centers and close to the most popular nuclear testing site in the USA. The trash from all around the nation was to be dumped in a tunnel complex that was located about 300 meters beneath Yucca Mountain. You can see that mountain is constructed of volcanic ash that developed millions of years ago in addition to its remote location. On paper, Yucca Mountain seemed like a perfect place for a repository because it allows nuclear waste to be absorbed without collapsing or cracking. However, Nevadans had none of it. The entire project was heavily politicized by the time Barack Obama became office. The Obama government discontinued funding the project in 2010 after determining it was unfeasible. A federal judge mandated its restart 3 years later. However, little has changed since the Biden administration made it apparent that Yucca Mountain is no longer a priority for the nation's objectives. After 4 decades of planning, legal issues, and more than $17 billion invested in the Yucca Mountain project, Nevada appears to have prevailed. But when everything is said and done, it is still an ineffective large-scale project that has never been used. Do you think that any of these have a shot at being useful in the future? Let us know in the comments down below.